when I was 15. So I went with my parents, and I had 3 conversations that night that I remember so vividly. The first was a lecture about how I couldn't be a mechanic. The second,
Really?
yeah. So
Mm.
it just lectured me and my dad for about 10 minutes. And at the time, I wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic. So he was like, she's too small to push the bikes around. She won't be able to do it. And yeah, like it now, like 12 years later, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's what that guy thought.
Hmm.
And then I had another conversation with a company. It was very short. These guys were like, we wouldn't want our daughters working at this workshop. We don't recommend it for you. And later I found out that male apprentices had been sexually harassed at that workshop. So I was like, got out of that one. But it's
Yeah.
kind of sad that these guys knew how bad of an environment their workshop was. It was
Mm.
like, looking back, I'm like, that is pretty bad. But then I kept going through the expo and I met Sarah. So Sarah at the time was a first year heavy vehicle mechanic. She was the same height as me, the same build as me, and at the time we we're both blonde. It's changed a few times since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but she was there, and after these 2 first conversations, I was feeling pretty disheartened. So when I saw her, I was like, look, like she can do it. Like it looks like I can do it too, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up doing work experience at her work. I did. I loved it. I applied for the job, and then I got the job.
You just got a little bit of a taste test of our latest guest, Miss Louise Azzopardi, who is amazing. Connected with her through LinkedIn. And there's some fiery conversation as we go on and continue to learn about the amazing experience that she's had and like the tremendous personal growth that she's experienced as a result of choosing a career in the trades. Who'd have thunk it? Her experience as an apprentice is pretty unique because she started her apprenticeship in high school, meaning she was like out working with adults and, of course, with a bunch of men as a young teenage lady. And so she shares some good insight about what it's like dealing with those things and really like as a teenager working with adults in the trades and how that kind of shaped her and galvanized her going forward. And you're going to learn about how big a baller Miss Louise is. But she's actually a world-class competitor in her specific trade. And so she tells us like the whole story of how she competed locally, then regionally, then that like globally, which is super damn impressive, and it's an amazing story. So you're gonna want to like catch all of that. So y'all, we're making a little bit of an adjustment here. I've gotten some feedback and I've been reluctant to listen, and so the goal is to release an episode every week. And so what that means is we're going to be slicing the 60, 70, 90-minute interviews. We're going to be cutting them in half. And this way, you know, you can take the whole thing, whatever's ready and available on your way into work, close it off, and then next week there's going to be another one just for you. So I'd love to get your thoughts on how that feels. Is it funky or whatever? But we're going to give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. Also, the Patreon element that we've had historically is gone. Patrons, love you very much. Deeply appreciate your support. And I know you're still out there supporting and working to enhance the image of careers in the trades. I've done a poor job of actually fulfilling my commitment to the patrons. Y'all have done a phenomenal job, and there ain't no reason for y'all to be paying for this stuff. So we're going to be closing that. Heads, just giving y'all a heads up. Much gratitude for that. And of course, we got to give a shout out to the L&M family members out there that show us so much love. This shout out goes to Miss Angela Gardner, who is one of the soothing, calming Southern tones that you're going to hear on Women Talk Construction. Miss Angela Gardner says, "This is why we love y'all, Jen and Jess. You both are always lifting up others. I love the blog posts. Always looking for ways to help others grow by creating meaningful ways to digest and understand what our internal selves need. Hashtag be the inspiration." Angela, you are an inspiration. I got to interview you early on the podcast, and then you and Miss Christie graced me with your presence and being the first guest on the OG Spotlight. So I appreciate you, sisters. Love y'all very much. And here we go on to Miss Louise. What is going on, folks? I'm here with Miss Louise Azzopardi. Did I get that? Yes.
Yeah, you got it. Good job.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Who's all the way in the future right now. Louise is in Australia, which is it's a 15-hour time difference from San Antonio, Texas to Australia. Where specifically in Australia, Miss Louise?
Sydney.
Sydney, Australia. Is that like party central over there?
Well, I'm not in the party scene, but
Yeah.
no, it's pretty. It has its seasons.
Okay. Good. Well, I know that you're a baller because I think I've seen you come across my feed on LinkedIn. And then, of course, I got nosy and let me look at some more. So I was like, oh my goodness, she's like competitor, speaker, coach. Like you got a whole ton of stuff. And I'll tell you what really intrigued me or caught my eye was that you came up. So you come up as a heavy machinery mechanic. Is that,
Yeah.
did I get that right? And now you're like life coaching and speaking and like, so that whole path I think is amazing. And I'd love for the L&M family to hear more about that because it started as a career in the trades and it was an avenue to all this other amazing ways that you're serving the community at large. And so I'm going to try to stop blabbing my mouth. And Miss Louise, I'd love for you to tell us what should the L&M family know about you?
Yeah. So, like you said, my name's Louise. I did start off my working journey as a heavy vehicle mechanic, which I started when I was 15, actually.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So, school was not for me, and I knew very early on. So, over here we do like preschool, like pre-K, and then we do year 1, year 2, year 3, whatever. So in year 7, you step up into the high school kind of age. And I knew then, like when I did that step, that I didn't want to continue studying. And I actually tried to convince my parents to leave school then. And when we're in year 7 over here, you're about 12 to 13. And I was like, none of this school stuff, me. Not a fan. But my parents were like, okay, you got to make it to year 10. So year 10 is kind of like the end of high school, and then we do year 11 and 12, which is our senior years of school. So at the end of year 10, they were like, you can leave if you have a job or an apprenticeship or something to go into. And this is when I'm about 14, 15.
Okay.
So I'm like, cool, I want to get out of here. So gone, like none of this sitting at a desk in a classroom for me. No, thank you. So then I ended up deciding that I wanted to be a mechanic. So I grew up on a farm, and I'm actually living at my parents' property at the moment too. So grew up on the farm, always working with my hands, fixing machinery, helping with farm work. So I was always very hands-on. So I was like, yep, I'm going to be a mechanic. And then I started doing work experience. So just like free work trials in my school holidays. And I loved it. But in all the places that I went, they gave me a good reference, but they didn't have a position available for me. So I was like, look, I'm not giving up on this. So I kept on going. And at the time, because I was still in high school, it didn't really matter that I was getting these rejections as well. So I kept looking. I looked for about a year. And me and my parents went to this apprenticeship expo. We have them over here where all companies that have apprenticeships available set up an expo, and job seekers can walk through, have a look, and talk to everyone. And I went to this expo, and I was 15. So I went with my parents, and I had 3 conversations that night that I remember so vividly. The first was a lecture about how I couldn't be a mechanic. The second,
Really?
yeah. So it just lectured me and my dad for about 10 minutes. And at the time, I wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic. So he was like, she's too small to push the bikes around. She won't be able to do it. And yeah, like it now, like 12 years later, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's what that guy thought. And then I had another conversation with a company. It was very short. These guys were like, we wouldn't want our daughters working at this workshop. We don't recommend it for you. And later, I found out that male apprentices had been sexually harassed at that workshop. So I was like, got out of that one. But it's
Yeah.
kind of sad that these guys knew how bad of an environment their workshop was. It was
Mm,
like, looking back, I'm like, that is pretty bad.
yes.
But then I kept going through the expo and I met Sarah. So Sarah at the time was a first year heavy vehicle mechanic. She was the same height as me, the same build as me, and at the time we we're both blonde. It's changed a few times since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but she was there, and after these two first conversations, I was feeling pretty disheartened. So when I saw her, I was like, look, like she can do it. Like it looks like I can do it too, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up doing work experience at her work. I did. I loved it. I applied for the job and then I got the job. So I started my heavy vehicle apprenticeship a few months after that. So I started in 2012 and I was about 15 and a half when I started my apprenticeship there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was it about school that helped you know, like, I ain't got no interest in doing any more of this?
I just, because I grew up on the farm and like this is my parents' livelihood, so that was like my idea of work life. My
Okay.
parents were doing well, like I was watching them like proceed through their careers kind of thing. And I was at school and I was like, how does this connect? Like there is
Mm.
no connection between, like, you're telling me you're preparing me for work, but I'm looking at my parents' work and none of this has any relation to that.
Truth. Truth.
That's little like teenage Louise. That's what she was thinking.
Yes.
And I
Brilliant.
think so many kids experience that, and often then we're put like, I was honestly, I was told that I was too smart to be a mechanic. I was like a high achiever in school, but I found
Sure.
it really boring. I found it like too easy. Like
Yes.
I was one of those kids.
Mhm.
And I was like, why would I, this is boring. Um but I know it happens to a lot of kids where they're just not interested. And a lot of them have that, like, how does this connect to the real world? So I was just like, that's one of the things at school, like, and even possibly being on the spectrum for ADHD, like that, not being able to sit still. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, you want me to sit in a classroom for another 6 years after this? I don't think so.
Negative. Does not sound appealing at all. Well, that's a it sounds like no big deal, but I think it's a really profound question to be sitting there and saying, how does this connect to real life? Right?
Mm,
How does this connect to work? And of course, your situation, your family, and being able to see their business and the life that they're experiencing was the connection that you were making. But I don't think I ever had that question. I do know similarly, right? Like I would get in trouble because come on, man, like go faster. This ain't enough to keep me settled.
mhm.
And if my mind wasn't challenged and occupied, I was knocking off, and that wasn't good for anybody. Um,
Yeah.
but I
And I think
never
it's
asked
something
that
that, like,
question.
I think with kids these days as well, the kids that do experience that, even though like the trades, like, the governments are getting behind trades because of the skill shortage and everything, so it's becoming more well known, but still these kids that are like relate to me and like you, like just the not sitting still, not working fast enough, the trades and like hands-on jobs are really good for people like us, but
Yes,
a lot of kids don't get that exposure.
that
So
they're just not aware of it,
yeah, so
right?
they don't see that option. For me, I was like, I know that there's another option and I'm going for it. If I didn't have that
Mm.
other option to go for, like, who knows where I would be.
And so it sounds like your parents were very supportive of your decision.
Yeah, my parents were like, they were pretty supportive because they knew what I was like. Like, they knew that I was good with tools. They knew that I could like manage myself around like a lot of guys. Like, my dad's friends had sons around my age, and
Ah,
we would all go motorbike riding together. So, my dad would bring me, and his mates would bring their sons. So, in that situation, I was the only girl. So, they knew that I could hold myself in that type of environment.
that's pretty powerful and like ultra important because I'm sure once you entered the workforce, the ratio, right? It's a male populated industry, and being able to, what's the word? Maybe not question yourself because of other people's dumb or ignorance, even, right? Like, because I mean, you talked about it, the first three interviews at the expo, right? They're like, there's no way I'd never let my daughter do this, or you're too small. You can't, based on absolutely nothing, right?
Mhm.
Just their ignorance and their lack of awareness and their closed mindedness. And then to be like working in that environment,
Mm.
And there's that degree of competitiveness because now, hey, like she may take my job unless they're super goofy and think like it's not possible that a woman can come in and like outperform me. Like, brother, yes, it's 100% possible. Oh man,
Mm.
so that okay. So you knew early on that something that required some physicality was going to be important for you.
Mm.
Uh you can sounds like you can digest and process information rapidly.
Mm.
So what was apprenticeship like?
Apprenticeship, it like I refer to it as a bit of a roller coaster,
Okay.
um, because like even now that I look back on it, what I tell other apprentices is the first year. So over here, apprenticeships are typically 4 years.
Yep.
3 years go part with college, as well as working, and then the fourth year is just working. But that first year, I refer to it as being dunked by a wave in the beach. So you've just got all of this, like, you're
Yeah.
just overwhelmed,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And if you're a school leaver, so if you're just going from like high school into an apprenticeship, which is pretty common over here, you're entering the workforce. You're being treated like an adult, where you've been treated as a kid in the school system. You got to be accountable for yourself. Plus, with an industry, with a trade, with any business as well, you're pretty much learning a whole new language about how
Yeah.
they talk about things. Then you're learning the work, and you've got all of this coming at you, and it's a lot. It's a lot for anyone. Even
Sure.
mature age apprentices, they like, even though they're adults, like they've been treated as adults before, they've still got the new language, the new workplace, the new content, the new skills, like all of that coming at you.
Yeah. And so what kind of advice do you offer youngsters? I mean, of course, like, hey, you're going to be hit with this tidal wave, but in terms of how to navigate that and how to deal with that, what do you recommend to them?
It's more just like not using your energy to beat up yourself. So like a
Um,
lot of times you'll be stuck, like you'll be like, shit, I learned that, but I forgot it. And then they like you use that energy to be like, shit, I should remember.
yep.
But just having that acceptance, being like, no, I've learned like a lot. Like I can't possibly remember it all. So rather than using your energy to talk down to yourself and beat yourself up, use that energy to then find out the information. Cool. I remember so and so told me this, but I can't remember exactly. Okay. Instead of going in the bathroom and being like, fuck, what am I
Oh,
doing? I'm gonna
so yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go and ask the person for that information.
Well, it's interesting. I remember back in school, which was a long time ago. The work was easy. I didn't care about getting A's. I
Mm,
didn't care. Like all I needed, I was in base. I played baseball, ran cross country, and so all I needed was a 70 to play.
mhm.
And I was in honors courses, so I got like an extra 10-point grace because of the honors courses I was in. So really, all I needed was a 60, so that and to play. Anything lower than that, I couldn't play. And so I would do the minimal amount of work, like whatever, just no big deal. I never did homework. I did good on tests. And I remember my friends, like my classmates, who would stress out about their grades. And
Mm,
that's a good thing. I think that's actually a really good thing. However, I think one of the differences in it's maybe a gap. It conditions us to put unnecessary pressure on ourselves is when like schoolwork was right or wrong. There was
mhm.
only a right answer, a way to do the thing. And if you didn't do it precisely that way, it was a F, right? Or it wasn't a
Yeah.
100. And then that conditions us to go out into the real world and think that we have to get it right all the time.
Mhm.
And
I
I'm
like
sure
to say, like, the universe doesn't have an answer sheet for you. As soon as you leave school, there's no more answer sheets. You have all these options, but there's no right or wrong. You're never going to find out. You're not going to get a letter from the universe and be like, yes, you picked the right path. Like, that's not going to happen.
that's freaking brilliant. There's no answer sheet for you. Go do it. So I mean, as you've progressed in your career and contributing the way you have, I'm sure you've been exposed to and shared space with some very accomplished people. I mean, hell, being a teenager working with adults, that's a different world. Like you said, it's a whole different thing. How many like accomplished human beings have you met that said, "Oh yeah, my life was a straight linear path"? None.
None. None.
Like in Australia, y'all don't have that either?
No, but it's funny because you look at the most, like there are some accomplished, like you're in Texas, you know, the US, you've heard of Donald Trump, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that kind of stream of accomplishments, but then there's like the genuine accomplished people that you love and respect. And when you look at them, most of the time they've had a really rough upbringing. They've had something turn to total crap in their life, whether it was, you know, a partner, a parent, you know, something crazy happen, a natural disaster. They've been through some kind of hard shit that's got them to where they are today.
Yes. And so how much does their mindset have to do with turning that tragedy or hurdle into a body of work that they can serve others with?
I think it's all mindset. Like literally everything you do is mindset. Confidence is mindset. You know, being able to do well on a test is mindset. No matter how much you study, if you don't think I know the answer, you're not going to come up with the answer, no matter how many books you've read. Like it's the way that you interact with people is all mindset. Like me jumping on this podcast with you, if I'm like, oh yeah, this podcast is a great way to share value and, you know, great, you're a great person to have a chat with, then my attitude's going to be very, very different if I'm like, this is a waste of time. Like,
Sure.
and you can really feel that when you interact with people. And it's all about what thoughts you go into each situation with.
Yes. Yes. So I know, or rather I've read on your website, you're now like a certified life coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that in that coaching, you help people with mindset and what's the word, self-image and self-talk and these sorts of things. How far off base am I?
That's pretty close. Like a lot of the times it is a lot of that working on the self first. Like a lot of my girls, so I coach like pretty much everyone, but I focus mainly on women in the trades.
Awesome.
And those girls, they're in environments like we talked about before in my entry to duty. People think you don't belong there. People, you know, have all their opinions. People are sexist, people have unconscious bias, people bully, they're all that kind of stuff. But really, if you have the mindset that you belong here, you're not going to tolerate any of that shit, whether that's standing up for yourself, whether that's leaving the workplace, whether like there's so many different ways that you can get out of that situation, whether it's changing or leaving the situation, but that's all in your mindset. Like so many of my girls come to me and they're like, I feel like shit here, I'm getting bullied, but I think I'm no good at my job, so no one's going to employ me. But that's like, you have to have the mindset to believe that you're good enough to be employed elsewhere as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. 100%. I get to talk to actually, I'm hanging out with the group of high school students tomorrow. One of the things I try to instill that back to the thinking, because the thinking is the thing. That's the key. It's the way I think. And yes, you're in high school, but there's a difference. And maybe it's because of the experience I have now of the way I used to function. And I used to go and apply for a job and hope that they would hire me, right? And behave as if I'm the only one getting interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's the other way around. Like, you get to hire me, and I'm not the only fool that's going to get interviewed here. You're getting interviewed too. I need to understand, do you got game enough to lead me and support me and help me thrive? Because if you don't, I'm going next door because they're going to hire me too.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it. And I don't know if you do it over there, but we do like a probation period here. So it's either 3 months or 6 months, you know, you can get terminated without any notice, all that kind of stuff. But that's for both parties. Like so many people, so many employees go into that situation where they're like, oh shit, they can fire me for no reason. And I'm like, but you can also leave for no reason.
Yeah. You can fire them back or fire them first, right? If they're not helping you, peace
you
out.
can have another job lined up, quit that job and go to the next one the next day. Like you can
On the
do that.
way home. So I'm assuming based on that, y'all have a pretty big gap in terms of the amount of jobs and work available and the amount of people there to fill it.
Yeah, especially in the skilled industries. So like in the trades, like electricians, plumbers, mechanics, like now that I'm working as a life coach, but I'm a mechanic by trade. And then before I become a life coach, I was also a technical teacher as well.
Yep.
And people like I asked, hey, you looking at getting back on the tools? Hey, do you want to train? Hey, like all the time.
Yeah. It's so you didn't do the math when you decided to go the trades path.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do any math? Like, how much did earning potential weigh into that decision?
I think it was more just, there wasn't the numbers, but there was more the fact of like, I could be paid to learn. Why would I pay to learn?
Yeah,
There
let me do this
was
one.
no numbers there. It was like, this seems stupid.
Girl, preach, sister, preach. Now, I will say, like, I think there are some professions that need require a college degree, and there are some families and people that really, it's a high value item to have. Go
Yeah,
do that, right? Like,
that's it.
do
It's
that.
all about choice. There's
Yes,
nothing wrong with choosing either path, as long as you're choosing it. Like kids that get pushed into the trades because like they're not performing well at school, like that might not be their path. Maybe they want to put the effort in, but they just don't know where or how to get those skills to get into college or into university. But then the
yes,
kids that get pushed into university, they might not like it. They might study for the 6 years, leave, and become a truck driver because they're like, I just did it because my parents said.
yes. And that's that. So for me, like my drive to continue advocating for careers in the industry is because I know so many people, and I was one of them for a very short period, like my senior year and the first probably 2 years of apprenticeship. I loved what I was doing, but I was beating myself up because I didn't go to university,
Mm,
right? And but I also know a lot of people are getting pushed into environments that they will not thrive in because for the simple fact that they don't know that this is an option. And I
mhm.
think you're phenomenal evidence of like thriving, finding the conditions in the environment that help you access uh, and realize all that you have within you. Right.
Mhm.
And it's not like I think you know this, but I'm getting the sense that what you're doing now in terms of contributing your gifts and talents to the world is small compared to what you're going to be doing in the future. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
I've got the big plan. This is just
Yes.
the beginning.
Yes. And so we touched a little bit about accomplishments, and you mentioned that you're a technical teacher, but word is you've done some competing for a
Yeah.
period of time.
Yeah, so I competed in the WorldSkills competition.
Cool.
So it's a international competition for the skilled industry, skilled trade. It's run regionally, nationally, and internationally. And I think
Wow.
over where you are, they have so WorldSkills. It's got a few different in a few different variations. In the US, I think it's Skills USA,
Yep.
it's like their national level. So it's the same stream. So over here, I competed regionally when I was in my fourth year of my apprenticeship. So I was 18, 19,
Yeah.
and I had about a week's notice before that. And my
Really?
goal, yeah. So for regionals, it's a bit of a short lead time, but I was like, cool, I'm going in this. Like my goal is to not come last. Like
Hey,
that
that's a good goal.
that's a
Yeah.
good goal. Like you got to start like sometimes like especially when you're super high achieving, it can seem like all or nothing, but sometimes you just take those little wins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's it. So I went in and my confidence was pretty low at that point. I had just come out of a sexual harassment situation. I had been like just I had imposter syndrome. I was like not really doing well. And I was like, look, let's go into this environment. No one knows me over there. Like no one knows me in the competition. I can just reinvent myself. So I'm like, gonna go in, gonna have a great time, gonna, you know what, if worst comes to worst, I'm gonna work out what I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's the worst case scenario.
So you point something out. How valuable is discovering what you don't know?
It's so valuable. I think like I often tell like apprentices, like don't waste your time pretending to know everything because that's preventing you from learning everything.
Yes. Yes. Open mind, closed mouth. People ask me, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? And I'm like, oh, that's easy. Two things. One, you're enough. Two, shut up and listen. Because I don't know about you, but I knew everything. Like I knew everything. And all that really did was, and it's still something I do today. I learned, I'm a fast learner, but I'm a fast forgetter,
Mm.
faster forgetter. And so I learned the same lesson over and over and over because no, I still don't believe it. I need to try this again my way. And so I kind of, I don't know why, but I got to learn things the hard way.
Yeah.
Obviously less now than I did back when I was younger, but I had so many very experienced people that were trying to share knowledge with me, and I just didn't believe them. I just didn't listen.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, but I know. I'm 18 and I know.
I know everything. It's like, was that period between like 13 to 19, you know, everything.
Yeah. And so
So,
you competed at the regional competition with the
yeah,
goal to not be last.
yes. And I succeeded. I placed second in that competition.
Oh,
Yeah. So that was good. That was like, you know, you hear that because they announced like a bottom up kind of thing. And like, as soon as I wasn't the first one announced, I was like, I've done it. I'm done. I have
goal
won.
achieved.
That's it. But then so what they did, they said these people are in the top three, and then they did a big presentation ceremony. So a month later, so I had a month to find out what place I had actually come, but I knew I was in the top three, and I was like, cool, probably come third. I ended up coming second,
Nice.
and with that, like we we're talking about mindset and everything, and how that leads into what, like how you act. So in that, first place automatically goes to nationals, but I come second. So I
Mhm.
didn't have that automatic path. But I was like, oh yeah, like is there any way I could get into internationals? And they're like, yeah, like some places don't run competitions. So through the pyramid, there is spots in nationals because some locations, some regions haven't run competitions. So I was like, awesome, that would be amazing. And people had known my attitude like in that space by now. And
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, we'll put your name forward. So I had like 4 or 5 people that I had probably met once or twice that were in leadership positions that were like, yeah, we'll put your name forward for you.
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up going and getting into the national competition. I found out about 10 months before the competition itself. So I found out, so the regionals was in 2015, nationals 2016, in October 2016. And I found out in January 2016 that I was accepted.
Ooh, nice.
So that was good. And like, it was funny the way that my mentality changed because I was like, none of this second bullshit. Like, we're going to win. Like,
We're
there's
winning this one. Yeah.
no, none of this. So a
Okay.
bit of
And how
a
did
change
that
there.
that competition turn out?
That turned out really well. It was a lot of putting in the prep work. So I was still working full time at my original place where Sarah had worked and how I started there. So I was working there full time. I got a weekend job so then I could get experience on more machines.
Mm.
And then I was also doing 2 courses at TAFE, which is our technical college here, at night. So I was putting in the effort. And then it kind of led up to the national competition and, you know, everything ramped down. They were like, always, you know, rest before the competition kind of thing. And I kind of went in the competition and just trusted, like, look, I've done all I can. I'm here to have a good time. And I just went into it with that, like, I've done all I can. I just got to trust myself to do the things and come up with the knowledge. And the competition, the nationals was 6 stations. So it was like gearboxes, electrical, brakes, engines, like that kind of thing. And you had 3 hours on each station to fix the problems. And I finished all of them early, well, except for
Woo.
one.
Oh.
And I was like, I feel like, you know, when you finish early and you're like, did I miss something? Like when you're doing a
Yeah.
test and you like miss a whole page and like, oh, everyone else is still going.
Yes. Yes.
So I kind of had that thought. I'm like, I've either done really well or I've just totally missed.
Bombed.
Like I've
Yep.
just missed the whole part.
Yep.
Turns out that I didn't miss any of it.
Yes.
Um, and I ended up winning gold for the national
Oh,
competition.
congratulations. Yes.
So that was amazing. And it was such like a bit of a contrasting feeling because like at my full-time workplace, I was still struggling with imposter syndrome. I was still getting harassed by a few people. I was still struggling with my mindset and having faith in myself, but I had created this opportunity where I was training and I was working and I was able to, be my most confident self in those places where I felt safe.
Sure.
So in that, I was like navigating that in my mind, like, what does this even mean? Like, I've got this accolade, but then in my main place of work, like, people think I'm shit.
Yep. Yep. And
So,
they don't care about the accolade, like whatever. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. So I removed myself from that situation and ended up working full time where I had been working on the weekends for the extra work. So that was a really great environment, and it was a really small business. There was only 3 of us there, so we really support each other like a family, and they helped me like build myself back up to like my most confident self that I was being everywhere else, which was amazing. And then I got into internationals.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So that was a selection process as well, because for there was like about 50 competitions run at the national level, but with funding and everything, they can only take about 20 competitors to the international level.
Yeah.
So even if you win your skill, you're not necessarily going all the way on. So that's when you become like, it goes into the attitude, your trainability, like your mindset, all of that stuff to see who would probably do the best in their category. So I got through that level as well, that criteria. And then, went into internationals. But it's funny because I went in and I was training as well, like training pretty much differently, but as hard as I was going into internationals. But I had lost a bit of the playfulness about it. Like going into nationals, it was like that fun, like, no, I'm not coming second again, like a bit of cockiness in there, like just having a bit of fun. But then in internationals, I was like, I know I can do it. I've done it before. I need to do it again. I need to do this.
I gotta win. I gotta
win. Yeah. So the pressure was so much. And I got into the competition and everything was like, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I had enjoyed the nationals because of all the pressure. And so my first job, I was mostly working on truck engines. Like we worked for a brand and like we did truck engines. So then that's why I had ended up getting that second job to work on whole machines and stuff like that. So we got into the engine section in the international competition. So it was the same setup as nationals. We had 7 stations, each with different parts of the machines. And I had got into the engines and I was like, yep, this is my specialty. And some of the tooling was wrong. But the judge that was judging me, his first language was in English, and he wasn't really he was just watching me. He didn't really want me to engage. And I said, oh, the tool's wrong. And he's like, no, everything's right. And I'm like, no, the tool's wrong. So like it threw me because I was like, all this self-doubt comes in because I thought it was wrong. And then I tried to use it how it should have been used, but then it wasn't fitting. It was the wrong size for the engine. Yep. And like it just threw me and I had this big breakdown. I had lost so much time to do like other fault finding. And I got to the end of that time slot. They brought over all the judges and like the head guy was like, no, that is actually the wrong tool. Why is that even in this site?
I've been saying this the whole time. Yo.
I know. And it was so like, this is like another gender thing. It was so funny because I was the only girl. There was a volunteer girl who was helping enter the scores and stuff, but all the professionals and all the competitors, they were all men.
All men. Yeah.
So I'm sobbing, like body shaking, like in hysterics. And I have my mentor over there so we all the competitors have a mentor, and that mentor goes over to internationals and judges the competition. So everyone has like a buddy. So they called over my mentor and they said to him, we think your competitor is upset. And I'm in hysterics. I'm in hysterics and I'm sobbing and they're like, we think she's upset. Yeah. He's like, yes.
Good observation.
It was ridiculous. It's just one of those things that you're like, oh my God, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But went through and they were like, no, it's wrong. We'll give her the points for that thing. But that kind of threw me because not only had I lost the points for that specific task, but all the other tasks that I would have done if I had
you didn't get to get them done.
I didn't get them done. So I was like, nope, I've lost it, whatever, it's all over. But we still had we had a day and a half left. So kept on going, just not feeling it at all, just miserable, just not enjoying it as much as I like imagined that I
Yep.
would. And like looking back, like I wish I would have, but kept going. And there was 16 countries competing.
Mm.
And we did the big medal ceremony. It was kind of like a closing ceremony of the Olympic style thing.
Yep.
Everyone had their family and friends, so they do, bronze, silver, gold. I didn't get any of those. And I was like, I've lost it, whatever. And then my mentor, he comes up to me after the ceremony, he finds me, he's like, Louise, guess what? And I'm like, what? And he's like, you come fourth. Like, he's like, he wasn't sure how the points were going to add up. He's like, I wasn't sure if you were going to tie third or come fourth, like kind of thing. So it was pretty close. And I was like, what? After how I had been feeling, I was like, that is amazing. Like, I thought I was dead last, and like I'm fourth in the world. Like, that was incredible.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
That's kind of a big deal. Like, you were kind of upset.
Yeah, I was just kind of upset about it. But no.
Oh my goodness. That's a
Yeah.
beautiful story. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The whole roller coaster of emotions. I was in a national competition for plumbing, and I didn't finish, right? Like, I didn't finish my thing, and I'd been a runner for most of my life at that time. And if you don't finish, you don't place, right? Like, you quit. And I didn't finish because I was a cocky jerk. I took cigarette breaks that I didn't need, because I'm looking around and I'm like, shoot, I got this. I'm winning. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. Anyways, made a simple mistake that cost me time, ran out of time, wasn't able to get my thing finished so that they could test it. And very similar, I'm like, hell with this, right? This is stupid. I just want to go home. I failed. I lost. And then at the award ceremony, this is it's funny to me. I forgot to pack dress socks. So I had white gym socks, the calf high, ugly gym socks with my best, fanciest pair of khakis, right? And so it was the awards night. Like, I don't want to go. My boss is like, no, we got to go. You can't be a sore loser. Like, whatever, let's go. And then they announced third place from San Antonio, Texas. And I'm like, ooh, who else? I thought I was the only one. And they called my name, right? I'm like, and the first thought I had was like, shit, I hope nobody sees my socks. But again, like, just the whole, I remember I was destroyed. And then when I found out, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then it was like, gosh darn it, Jess, if you just would manage your ego a little bit more, you would have, right? Like, that for me, that was my problem. So congratulations on that. That is phenomenal. So high achiever, competitive spirit, you don't mess around, you get an opportunity, you capitalize on the damn thing. How did you go from mechanic to life coach? What was the connections there? Just when it was getting good. I know. I'm a party pooper, folks. This is part one. Next week we'll be releasing the second half of this interview, which you're gonna want to hear, because our amazing guest has an amazing learning and misstep they're going to share. And also, the footprint they intend to leave on this earth is moving. They always are. So come back next time. And in the meantime, you can listen to some of the older previous episodes. Another thing you can check out between now and the next episode hitting is the blog. You go to depthbuilder.com. Go to the homepage. Up on the top, there's like the menu bar, and you look for the blog and you click on the blog. And there's a bunch of stuff there for you to read. Appreciate your support very much. And we'll see you soon. Peace. Man, you are one dedicated listener, sticking with us all the way through to the very, very end. Please know that this podcast dies without you. And we invite you to share how the episode's impacting you. along with your thoughts, questions, and suggestions. You have been gracious with your time, so we added social media links in the show notes to make it super easy for you to connect with us. Be kind to yourself, stay cool, and we'll talk at you next time.